Hello and welcome. You're watching a special broadcast brought to you by Republic Business on Republic TV. This is Rajat Mishra. Well, the world is going through a sea change. Geopolitical situation is volatile, the markets are volatile, and there is a rising clamor for rate cuts across the world. To shed light on the various aspects pertaining to emerging markets, economy, investment, we are joined in by a very special guest, Mr. Mark Mobius, who is the chairman of Mobius Emerging Opportunities Fund. Thank you, Mark, for joining us and speaking to Republic Business. And very congratulations, first of all, for coming out with your latest book known as The Book of Wealth, a young investor's guide for wealth and happiness. Thank you, Mark, once again for joining and speaking to Republic Business and Republic Media Network.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, Mark, I just want to start off by asking you a first important question. We know you are very bullish on India's growth story, and that's something not hidden anymore. But do you think that world also believes in India's growth story as much as you believe in?
Yes, I believe what's happening globally is that more and more people are tuned in to India, are increasing their knowledge of India and increasing their interest in India. And this is particularly true in the US and Europe, where there's a need for new supply chains, not so much dependent upon China, but on other countries. And India, of course, is the prime example of where countries can diversify their supply chains. So the interest in India is definitely growing.
Okay. And also, I just want to ask you, what is your take? We know that global economy is very volatile as of now. Geopolitical situation is also very volatile as of now. Markets are volatile. How do you assess the global economy as of now, and what are the few trends that you expect going forward?
Well, first of all, as you know, interest rates in America are very high. You can get as much as 5% for US Treasuries short term, and that is attracting a lot of money. However, there's still an incredible amount of money supply, not only in the US, but globally, because as a result of COVID, many central banks pumped increasing amounts of money into the system. In the US, in 1 year alone, the money supply went up by 26%, and over 2 years, doubled that, about 40%. So you have still, even though the Fed has been decreasing the money supply growth, the money supply is still there. And so there's a lot of money searching for opportunities. And that's true globally as well. Many of the central banks around the world would like to bring down inflation, but it'll be very, very difficult. And they stand the danger of creating a crisis on the consumer side. So this is something we have to watch carefully.
Okay. And what is your biggest worry as far as markets, global markets are concerned, global economy is concerned? What is your biggest worry as of now?
My biggest worry is that the dependence upon interest rates by market observers is too great. In other words, they believe that if interest rates come down, the markets will do well. And that's not necessarily the case. If we look at history, the correlation between interest rates and markets is not very close. So this is a worry that I have, that people will depend on that too much. So we have to watch that. The other thing, of course, is that we've been in a bull market for quite some time, not only in India, but in the US and other countries. And there's always going to be a correction along the way. So we've got to be ready for a correction at some point.
Let's talk about your book, Mark. We also know that in your book, one of the primary things that you highlighted is that mental health is wealth. And you have gone to an extent to explain it in a detail. Can you just tell us, what are you trying to say by saying that mental health is a wealth? And you have also given some anecdotal examples in your book. Can you just talk about and throw light on that as well?
Yes, what I try to point out in the book is that, yes, it's important for you to try to invest wisely in the short term and make money in the short term. But most people are not going to be lucky in the short term. They're going to be lucky in the long term. And the way they are lucky is by maintaining their positions for long term. And probably a good example of that is Warren Buffett, who's been in the business for many, many years. And he's become wealthy because he's been able to hold positions for a long term. Of course, that means picking the right positions in the market. But at the end of the day, the health aspect is very important because if you're healthy, you can live longer. If you can live longer, you can invest longer and therefore become more wealthy.
Right, and it's very well explained. Also, Mark, we also want to understand from you, since you have been tracking India as an emerging market since long time, and we know that you have been very bullish on it. How do you assess 10 years of Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the helm of India as Prime Minister? How do you assess the progress that we have done economically, technologically? How do you assess the last 10 years?
I think Modi has done a terrific job, and I think the reason for that is his interest in digitization of the Indian economy. He is very interested in technology, and he realizes that's the way for a country to grow. If you digitize the economy, if you give people more tools, such as the internet and other tools in the technology area, the country is going to grow faster. And that's what's happening now in India, and Modi has promoted that very successfully.
Right. And Mobius, one thing that everyone looks out for is what are you going to predict about the Indian markets and various stock markets for that matter. How do you see the growth of Sensex, or for that matter Nifty in India? What are your predictions as far as growth of the market in India is concerned?
Well, as I've said in the past, the Sensex is going to continue to grow. There will be corrections along the way, but the Sensex will do very, very well in the long term. So people investing today for the long term will do very well. Of course, there'll be corrections, and that's the reason why it's a good idea to keep some cash available when those corrections come. But you should stay in the market with good companies that have good earnings growth, low debt, and you'll do very, very well. Because India is growing at such an incredible pace that the companies in India, of course, will benefit from that high growth.
Right. And I read it somewhere that you also talked about that by end of this term of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, third term of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Sensex is likely to touch 1 lakh. So what is your take on that? And what about Nifty? Do you expect it to touch by 1 lakh? And now you expect, considering the pace of the work and various developmental work going to be carried out in the next 5 years, do you think that Sensex is going to go beyond the point that you predicted earlier? And what is your assessment going forward for next 10 years?
Well, certainly within the next 5 years, it will reach 1 lakh. Specifically when that will happen, of course, I can't predict, but I know that it will go to that point. And then after that, you're going to see 2 lakhs. Again, it will be a long-term projection, but that's definitely in the cards for India.
Yeah. And Mr. Mobius, also one thing that I want to ask you, because you are the one who have been tracking emerging markets all across the world. So apart from developed economies, if I ask you to rank the emerging markets in terms of your priority as an investment destination, what are the top 3 countries that you have in mind, those you think have immense potential, and rank it in the order of your priority?
First, of course, India, Taiwan, and then after that, perhaps Vietnam. Those would be the 2 that we would look at.
And can you just delve deeper into it and explain it? What explains your priority when you take India on the spot 1, Taiwan on the spot 2, and Vietnam on spot 3?
First of all, in the case of India, the young population, the increase in technology and the use of technology by the population at large is really the driving force, the 2 driving forces. In the case of Taiwan, it's the semiconductor industry and how much they have advanced in that area. And as you know, TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Company, is the leader in that area. But throughout Taiwan, there are incredible companies that are doing very advanced technology. So that's driving growth. In the case of Vietnam, they are increasingly taking over manufacturing from China. And also, it's a young population, a very dynamic population, and that will drive growth in that country.
We also know that China plus 1 is one thing, and businesses are moving out of China and coming to India and to other emerging economies as well. When it comes to India and China, what is your priority? Would you like to invest in China or India?
Well, of course, you cannot ignore China. China is still a very big economy. You've still got very, very good companies in China. But at this stage of the game, India is coming up at a very fast pace and taking a lot of the manufacturing from China. That's taking time. It's not going to happen overnight. But definitely, India will become a major manufacturer. As you know, India is still a big exporter of software. The software industry in India is very advanced, perhaps more advanced than in China. But gradually, the semiconductor industry will be coming into India, and India will become a leader in semiconductor technology. So that's where the big growth is going to be coming.
Right. And since you talked about the Indian markets and you also predicted that what is the level that they are expected to touch in the next 5 years, I just want you to highlight certain sectors which you have a big, those have an immense potential going forward. I have seen that you have talked about IT sector. What are the top 3 sectors that you are bullish on as far as India is concerned?
The first would be in electronics manufacturing. Now, of course, there are not that many companies yet, but as I said, more and more electronics manufacturing, semiconductor manufacturing will come to India, and that's a sector that you want to look at closely. The other would be infrastructure. So India needs an incredible increase in infrastructure, and the demand is growing at a very rapid pace because if you have a country growing, you need more power, electric power. You need more railroads. You need more roads. You need more bridges. All this infrastructure is a very, very important part and an area where investments will be growing at a fast pace.
And Mr. Mobius, we are talking at a time when we are just almost 1 month far off from the Union Budget of India is going to be presented by Finance Minister. And you have already talked about the potential of India, but what are the reforms, top reforms that you want India to immediately take up? And you would like, then that would be a wish you would like to see it in the budget. What are the top 2 reforms that you would like to see in India going forward?
First of all, I would say a simplification of the paperwork and bureaucracy regarding incoming funds, incoming investments. There's a little bit too much bureaucracy now, and there's a need to open the market up to that regard. Now, of course, related to that is foreign exchange. I know the Reserve Bank of India is very careful with the exchange rate. They're very careful about the amount of foreign exchange available. But they have to free up that more and more to allow foreign investors to come in. In other words, when foreign investors come in, they have to be able to get out. So you have to give them that assurance that they can bring money in and out without too much bureaucracy. So I would say that's very, very important because India needs to get this investment, particularly when you get into semiconductors. You require an incredible array of different technologies to come in, and that takes money.
Right. And also, I have read it somewhere that you talked about the best way to make money in the stock market is to get the best values to do what other people are not doing. So can you just explain it to young investors? Because you have been highlighting it in your book also, and you have been talking it from the various platforms. Just explain it for the young investors and those who are very actively trading in the stock market.
I tell people, don't listen to me, don't listen to your neighbors, don't listen to your family, don't listen to your friends, listen to yourself. Look inside yourself and figure out what your real desires are and make your own decisions. And of course, the best time to buy when others are despondently selling. The best time to sell is when others are greedily buying. And that is a very, very important aspect of investing. So you have to be patient and you have to be very strong in such a situation. So if the Indian market crashes and goes down by 20 or 30%, that's the time to be buying. And of course, if the Indian market goes up too high, that's the time to be selling. So you have to follow that principle generally.
And Mr. Mobius, last question I want to ask you. One is that what is your take on the cryptocurrency as an asset class? Do you consider investing in it as a good investment option? And second, what is the one phrase that comes to your mind when you think about India as an emerging economy?
Well, crypto, I always tell people when you ask me about crypto, I tell them I don't like to talk about religion in public because it is kind of a religion. So I personally do not invest in crypto. I prefer to invest in companies that are growing with good managements. However, you can make money in crypto, but go into the areas where crypto is being exchanged. In other words, it's like the people who made money in the gold rush in California. The people that made the big money were not the miners, but the people who supplied the shovels and the wheelbarrows and so forth. So in crypto, it might be a good idea to go into crypto exchanges and that kind of thing, but not in the crypto itself. I think that's probably a better way. But there's no question, crypto is very, very important today and is getting more and more important because people want to transfer money around the world, and it's an easy way to do that. So it's very important to look at that.
And last question, is it a right time to invest in gold? And one phrase that comes to your mind when we think about India as an emerging economy.
You should always have gold. And I know Indians love gold. They have a lot of gold personally, and I think it's a great thing. You should have, I would say, at least 10% of your assets in physical gold, not gold in the market or anything like that, but physical gold, because it's a safety measure. And it's something that will appreciate over time. As you can see, the gold continues to increase.
Right. And one phrase that comes to your mind when you think about Indian economy, Mr. Mark?
Oh, that's a very good. I've been all over India, and I can't think of any particular place. I like all of India. I really find it so exciting. Maybe Hyderabad, because that's where Bahubali film is shown in the set of the Bahubali film is shown there. So Hyderabad is particularly fun for me.
Well, thank you so much, Mark, for speaking to Republic Business and sparing out time. Thank you so much for sparing out time for Republic Business, Mr. Mark.
Thank you.